loved her. A simple statement, yet behind it lies a sky full of regret, the quiet echo of a man who once stood at the peak of global admiration, now learning to reflect on himself through the lens of introspection after a marriage shattered by pain. Brad Pitt, once celebrated not only for his charisma but for his image as a devoted father, is now walking through the quietest days of his life, days when fame no longer fills the void left by a broken bond between a father and his children. After years of legal battles, tabloid headlines, and an ever-widening emotional distance, Brad Pitt has finally admitted he made mistakes. No more justifications, no more avoidance, only a bowed head and hard-earned clarity. On the New Heights podcast, he opened up about the hardships he faced and emphasized persistence, as if it were the only thread he had left to hold on to something once sacred. But persistence doesn't always lead to redemption. Brad Pitt knows this. He understands that some things, once broken, cannot be repaired by apologies or one-sided effort. His relationship with his youngest children, Knox and Vivienne, is the living proof of that harsh truth. A close source revealed it plainly. Brad Pitt is desperate. Not desperate for attention or career revival, but for the purest thing of all, a father's love. With Knox and Vivienne's birthday on July 12th, today, he had hoped, however faintly, that they might want to spend a moment with him. Even a moment would mean the world. What makes it harder is Vivienne's heavy silence. Recently, she dropped the surname Pitt from her name in public appearances. A small gesture to some, but for Pitt, it was a thunderous message. A silent rejection. Yet, even through that pain, he clings to the last fragile thread of hope. Knox and Vivienne still carry the name Jolie-Pitt. To him, that hyphen represents the final bridge to the children who once called him Dad. In his despair, Brad Pitt does not shout. He remains silent, patient, and respectful. Another source shared that Pitt almost never speaks of his children, not because he has forgotten, but because he knows that respecting their privacy is the least he can offer after all the wounds. Still, his silence does not equal surrender. He continues to follow their lives from afar, quietly holding on to hope and telling himself to wait a little longer. Some battles cannot be won with strength or logic. Some wounds only time can heal, if you're lucky. For Pitt, what remains in the heart of a father who has lost so much is a fragile belief that, one day, they will understand. Not understand that he's a star, not even that he tried to provide for them, but that in everything he did wrong, he never stopped loving them. In the dazzling world of Hollywood, where everything can be replaced with fame and fortune, the truth is, Brad Pitt doesn't seek the world's forgiveness. He only wants his children's. And the cruel irony is that the man once idolized as the ideal figure by millions is now silently begging for a love he once failed to protect. He does not blame his children. On the contrary, Brad Pitt understands that the next step must come from them. He tried. Many times. But failed. That is why he no longer imposes expectations. Like a father standing quietly on the sidelines, willing to fade into the background so his children can shine, Brad Pitt can now do only one thing. Wait. Brad Pitt has come to terms with a bitter truth. His relationship with Angelina Jolie will forever exist in a state of disagreement, with irreconcilable differences. But that doesn't mean he has closed the final chapter on his role as a father. On the contrary, when romantic love has burned to ashes, what still holds Brad Pitt upright is his unconditional love for his children, a love he has never allowed himself to let go of, even when all that remains is distance and silence. Pitt and Jolie began their much-publicized relationship in 2004, a romance filled with allure and intensity. They became an iconic couple of their generation, admired for their passion and shared ideals. After 10 years together, they married in 2014 in what seemed like a storybook ending. But just 2 years later, everything fell apart. 12 years of love, 6 children together, and the gaze of the entire world came crashing down in a split marked by legal disputes and emotional estrangement. Amid ongoing custody battles and relentless media scrutiny, a source close to the actor told Daily Mail that Pitt has stopped denying reality. He and Jolie will never see eye to eye again. There's no more hope for reconciliation, no more shared dreams for the sake of the kids. And yet, he has never let go of one thing, his bond with the children he still calls his real family. Brad is a family man, the source said. It's a simple statement, yet profoundly moving when placed in context. A father estranged from his children, held at a distance by the very breakdown of the relationship that once gave them life. Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt share 6 children: Maddox, Pax, Zahara, Shiloh, and twins Vivienne and Knox. Once photographed together at every major event, once the image of a seemingly inseparable family, each child has now drifted emotionally in different directions, most leaning toward Jolie. That reality hurts Pitt deeply, but he doesn't fight it, nor does he cast blame. Instead, he takes a step back, accepts it, and silently remains steadfast in his role as a father. Not loudly, not forcibly, but as a safe place his children can return to whenever they are ready. Parents have an unbreakable bond with their children, the source said. It's a tie that cannot be severed, even when feelings fade or physical and emotional distance makes communication difficult. And Brad Pitt, with all that remains after his marriage's collapse, still holds on to one hope, that one day, his children will understand he has always been there, as a quiet constant, never turning away. He almost never speaks about his children in public, not because he doesn't care, but because he understands that love doesn't need to be performed in the spotlight. In a world like Hollywood, where every move is dissected and judged, Brad Pitt chooses to express his love with patience, the most subtle yet enduring form of affection. What makes Brad Pitt admirable is not just his good looks, talent, or iconic roles. What makes him truly remarkable is that he continues to be a father, even when no one sees it. He does not do it to prove anything to Jolie, nor to restore his public image. He does it out of instinct and responsibility, because love like that doesn't die with a divorce decree. Brad Pitt has never been ready to give up his role as a father, no matter what has unfolded in his long, highly publicized divorce from Angelina Jolie. While the relationship between the two adults has grown increasingly distant, Pitt's love for his children remains the one thing he clings to, not out of legal obligation, but because of an emotional responsibility he cannot abandon. A source close to the situation told Daily Mail that the F1 actor is still unwilling to give up on his kids, and has done everything in his power to regain their trust and affection. Yet much of his effort has been met with silence. A painful example came last year when Pax was involved in a bike accident. Pitt was said to be deeply worried and heartbroken, reaching out immediately to check on his son. But according to The Insider, the children didn't answer his calls. That silence hasn't made Pitt give up. In fact, it has only made his hope more persistent, however fragile it may be. He will always believe and hope that he'll have the chance to reunite with all of his children, and he doesn't want to think otherwise, the source shared. He doesn't want to give up. That's not who he is. That's not the kind of father he is. He's a proud dad, and he'd be overjoyed if one day his children come to see that. It has been several years since Pitt and Jolie's divorce dominated global headlines. From Hollywood's golden couple to the center of a bitter legal custody battle, their journey has been scrutinized at every turn. But what people often overlook is that Pitt's love for his children has never wavered, not with time, nor with court rulings. One of the most painful realities, the source added, is the feeling of helplessness when you've tried over and over again and still can't bring your children back. Now it has to come from them, the insider said, because Brad has already done everything he could to reconnect. At 61, Brad Pitt seems to be entering a new chapter in life. According to Us Weekly, he has apparently reevaluated everything and is ready to move on from his past with Jolie, a past that had been controlling his life for so many years. He loved her, and he knows he made mistakes, the source admitted. More importantly, despite acknowledging that their divorce was a divisive and toxic situation, Pitt doesn't blame Jolie for everything. He understands that his children's hurt is a result of the situation, not just one person's doing. What sets Pitt apart is this. He has maintained his compassion through disagreement, holding on to a pure love for his children, regardless of where they stand in relation to him now. Pitt doesn't need applause. He just hopes for one day, one moment, when his children look at him without hesitation. A father who never gave up, never shouted, but quietly stood there, waiting for them to return. This isn't a role. This is his truth. And, perhaps, it is also Brad Pitt's deepest form of redemption.